We had some technical malfunctions last time. Hopefully this time we got a little bit better. And yeah.
So this is our second one. It's supposed to be our third. Supposed to be the third.
It's supposed to be third.
This is the second. Unfortunately, last week did not quite go as planned. We have some better cameras and some better equipment, and the idea was that it was going to look better and sound better. And it probably would have. But unfortunately, we couldn't get it to work, so we sat here till 10 o'clock talking to the internet with no one there. So you should be seeing us right now. So that's that's a shot there to see if everything's going on. But so it should be good. Should work out.
I think so. This is not as easy as people want it to be.
No, definitely a learning curve.
Yes,
was not aware of the large learning curve. I thought we would just buy fancy stuff and it would look fancy and it would be fancy and that's how it would work. But apparently, you do have to have some kind of skill set to it. So
to have some knowledge in this.
We're getting a little better
there, though.
Yeah, we're getting better.
YouTube is our friend. But all in all, I think it's been pretty cool. But anyway, how was your week?
It was pretty good. We were supposed to go fishing the week before last.
Yeah.
Afterwards, but then there's been much rain and the temperature's hot, so we wound up not going. We had a trip scheduled to go down to the New River, but they said the water clarity was really, really well.
It doesn't work so well for muskies.
Doesn't work so well with that, and the water was low, so we wound up not going. So it's looking like we're probably, if the rain picks up, we will go in July.
Gotcha.
If not, I'm probably not going to do that attempt until August. But we got some other stuff set up in between. We are going. I think we're going out to Ocean City again with a really good charter.
Same guy you did your shark stuff with?
Yeah, it's the same guy we're going to go with again.
Okay.
Bottom Bouncers. That's what the name of it is. A nice guy, good cat. I can't remember his name to save my life right now, of course, because we're on here. And I didn't put it on any notes or anything to put on there. But he was a good guy. His mate was a good guy. So we're going to go out with them again, I think, coming up. And then I believe, and this would maybe you could even like this, aren't we going to go do some bow fishing for snakehead?
We are. Trying to get it set up. We've got to find a good date for everybody. We tentatively scheduled for the 9th, which is next Saturday, but it's open for us. So, we won't throw that name out there until after we get
until we do it. I don't want to say I don't want to praise anybody until we get.
Right.
So I mean, but we picked a good guy.
Yeah.
Well, as far as ratings go, and people rave about how great he is, so hopefully he does end up being a really good person to use.
Yeah. He's wildly awesome to talk to on the phone. So
I think the best part about the whole snakehead market right now is that people are actually starting to realize that it's actually a really good edible fish. They have it at Wegmans.
It's like you said this.
I think it's like $15 a pound or something. So you go out there and bow fish for a little bit, you get $5,000 worth of fish pretty quick. So I'm pretty excited about it. I still don't know why people are so skeptical of it. It's delicious. It's
like
white
a snake.
meat.
That's why people know it has. It has teeth. It looks like a snake.
All predator fish have teeth of some sort.
Yeah, but those are
catfish.
Those are teeth, dude.
I wouldn't eat a bluefish or a catfish, but people eat those all the time.
Catfish are amazing. They are the best things ever.
No.
Yep.
Not at all. I'll eat snakehead any day. I have no interest in eating bluefish.
Like half the South will disagree with you right now.
I mean, when it's all you have to eat. When you've got to survive, it's like I always tell people when they talk about things I'm not a really big venison person. I'm going to hear a bunch of shit about that, but I just said it. It's already been said. So I don't really like it that much.
And I thought you were my friend.
It's just not something that I enjoy. I'll eat it, but it's not that great. And the same thing when I talk about things that I don't like, and people go, "Oh, well, you haven't had it. You haven't had it served right." And I go, well, I mean, you don't have to tell me that with the steak. Oh, you don't like steak? You haven't had it served right now. When I've got to go through 17 steps to make it edible, maybe I shouldn't be eating it. Oh, you want to eat a bluefish? First, what you got to do is you got to catch it and skin it, and then you got to dump it in lime juice, and then put it in milk, and then pour this on it and do that. Then it finally starts to become edible. I don't need you to explain to me how to make food edible. So that's kind of where the catfish is with me on that too. There's all these that you can't eat a catfish once catfish gets too big and this, that, and the other. Like, why there's
breaking my heart.
Whatever, there's so many rules on when I can and can't eat something and how it's going to taste. That's the part that really makes me consider maybe I'm not going to like it in general. It's like when your mom or your wife or any, well, it's usually women do it to you. Oh, here, taste this. It tastes terrible.
Oh, yeah.
Well, why would I taste it if it tastes? You just told me it tastes terrible. I don't need to try it.
You should try that.
I 100% believe you it tastes terrible. And I think that's where I sit on catfish as well. So But we can move along from that. That'll be for the cooking show. That'll be our 9th episode.
Well, and what I can tell you, I'll end this one, but I will tell you, catfish, sure, maybe not your thing, but what I will say is, as far as venison goes, man, there's my brother. I'll get him to come on, and he will do a lesson on venison. And
yet again, I'm sure if we spend a whole bunch of prep time, we can make it out of you covered in cheese and jalapenos and stuff. It tastes great.
His way of doing it is he's got it. Maybe the longest part of it is cutting it up. After that, you're done. I mean, it takes him 15 minutes to cook it, and it's delicious and like 3 steps. So you may like it, you may not, but that's not for me to decide. Anyway, as we move along here. So I got to go take somebody fishing for the first time.
So you were saying that you went out. So I'm going to say this wrong. I keep wanting to say last weekend.
Yeah, it was actually
last because today's Friday. So
okay,
so it would have been last weekend. Yeah. Where I'm off from not having the
not
show
having the podcast
week, so
kind of screws up everybody's calendar.
Yeah. So where did you go?
So we wound up going to this little private lake. I was telling you a little bit about it over in Lovettsville, and just outside of Lovettsville, and it is so cool. They've got a lot of other stuff around it, but to actually get the ability to kind of go in and do fishing in that pond, they don't like people to fish there.
Okay,
but we got permission. So
like signs that say don't fish.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just curious. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
But we have owner permission, and it's in writing. We're doing it by the book. We're not kind of skating on anything. But you know how, like, I don't know, I'm weird about certain things, but like when I go fishing, I have like my home pond, right? That's where you can go out and maybe you get a new rod, you can shake out your rod, first real fishing, day that you get in the spring, and you can go try stuff out and everything's great, right? That's kind of like my pond, right? And it's really open, so it's really cool to be able to, you don't have to worry about getting hung up as much or anything like that. Plus, I just know what the fish are going to eat, so that helps.
Yeah, I'm just.
So I took this. I say kid. He's 20ish, 21, 22, maybe.
Oh, really? I actually thought you took like a child.
No. I took. I say kid. I'm old, so. But no, I took him out. He'd been fishing once, and it was so long ago he couldn't remember. Never caught anything like that. So I take him to our pond, right? And said, all right, kind of giving him the basics, taught him how to, tie a, basic knot, everybody's, first knot. And we're good there. Go out and showed him how to cast. He had no idea how to cast. So we used an open face reel, and he did. He just went at it. There's no apprehension in him at all. I'm going, right? Cool. So he was fishing this little silver jig. I mean, nothing fancy, but it always gets bit, always, right? So we're sitting there having a good time. Life is great. And, he says, well, what do I do if I catch a fish? I was like, well, you keep constant pressure on the line, don't yank on it, just reel it in. So let your drag do the work. If it's too big, take it out, whatever. And he goes, all right, what do I do once I get it in? I was like, well, you grab them and pick them up. And no, I mean, really. And I look over, the dude's got a 4-pound bass that's sitting at the dock. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Drop everything, run over there and grab it. And it was so cool. I mean, I don't know. I would, to me, those days right there are worth their weight in anything. Getting somebody else who was excited about fishing, and he busted it the rest of the day. I think he caught one more the rest of the day, but he was willing to stay out there till 6 o'clock at night. I mean, it was just so cool, man.
So you know how you kind of assume people are going to understand things, and especially in that kind of situation where you're fishing, you're thinking, oh yeah, they'll reel it in and they'll figure it out. They don't people don't necessarily always understand that.
Yeah.
And speaking of the last time we were at Ocean City, we were shark fishing. We were out there chumming, and we're just sitting there, but this tide's kind of slack, so dolphins are everywhere, we're not catching anything. But the rods are getting hit every so often, and they're not getting hit by sharks. You tell me,
right?
Little things are tapping them, probably a spot or something like that out
right
there. And the crabs are messing with it because it's slack tide. And then the one rod does hit, and it hits, and immediately starts boat, and it's a pretty big spinning reel. This is they set up to go catch like 4 or 5 foot sharks, maybe a little bigger. So the rod starts going. Well, my friend Peter's girlfriend is with us, and she's very, very petite girl, small girl. She's probably like, I don't know, like 120 pounds, teeny. And we're trying to get, she's realizing fish much. So we're like, oh, grab the rod, grab the rod, grab the rod. So she grabs the rod, and the first thing she does is she just grabs it, and the thing just bows straight to the bottom. And she just stands there and stares at it. And we're all just staring at her. And she's holding the rod. She's like, and we're like, what are you doing? Grab the rod. And everybody's supposed to start screaming at her. But then I realized that nobody had this discussion of like, oh, hey, when you pick the rod up and it starts going, you need to crank it up. And of course, he was gone. The pressure was lost. But it was really funny just to watch her hold it and be like, I don't know what to do. Should I reel it in? Would I just hold it? What do I do? But you assume they're going to get that off the bat. Like, yeah, you think they might not know how to cast. Yeah, they might not understand lure. But you don't think they're not going to realize that I should reel this in.
You know, but yeah. I mean, there's no other way. But I think what it is I can think about, go back in the Wayback Machine and think about catching my first fish, right? And go in there and catch my first fish. And I was so enamored with it. And just shocked. This is the greatest thing ever, and I'm hooked, right? But sometimes, even now, when you see that rod bend, it's like, oh, I got to do something. Even now, I mean, you just get so excited. And, I certainly don't fault her for it at all. You see something just taking line. What am I supposed to do here? And you see that a lot, especially on sport fishing. When you get out deep sea or something like that and catch something big.
Well, I've been where I've sight fished. I reeled something in, and so it hits it. I stop because I'm more stunned that I just saw it happen, and I'm like, some fish doesn't matter. Bass still gonna take it. You're still gonna get it.
Yep.
But some finickier fish, you stop there. They're like, I'm not hitting that.
No, I'm not touching it.
And then you're just like,
yep.
What did I do?
Oh yeah.
I don't get it. But to watch the basic panic, this fear in her mind, she was like,
oh, I don't know what to do now.
This is more than I thought I was doing today.
Right.
And all I wanted to do, and of course, you keep your composure, but all I want to do is just grab the rod and push her out of the way.
Yep.
What are you doing? Get out of the way.
Yep. Type A personality. I got this.
Ruin the trip for everybody. So
I can't blame them though. And it's interesting no matter, again, somebody getting the opportunity to reel in a fish or understand more about fishing, I'm all in.
So I had heard, and I could be wrong, but I did hear this. So when you went out there, you took 2 people with you, and then you guys were out kayaking, and there was some kind of incident that happened or something. We were supposed to have some footage, but I guess we don't have the footage from your trip. You were doing a little video. Something happened?
I still hate you. All right. So, yes, we went out to a different lake. This was a different one.
Okay.
And this was just me and Allie.
This was the week before.
Yeah, the week before.
So that's where we're getting mixed up because I knew this had come up, but we hadn't talked about this yet.
Yeah, still hate you. So we're sitting there, me and Allie. And
I think you should probably say who that is.
Yeah. Oh, Allie's my wife.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
My amazing wife at that too. So
she's probably not listening.
No, but and she won't. But it's okay. But so and I got to kind of tell you, anytime you have a wife that wants to go fishing, I'm all in. That's a keeper in my book. But so we go out on the kayaks, and we have some really good kayaks. I like them. We get out and we tried this new lake called Silver Lake over in Prince William County. There's a park ranger there who was absolutely awesome. Great interaction with him. He kind of gave us a little bit about the lake, a little bit about what's going on. I thought it was really cool. I had a great experience with him. We go out and there's a lot of kids and stuff kind of around, and it says no swimming, things like that. So we're kind of going around doing our thing. And he decided, so there's this little float thing that somebody had, and it goes off in the lake. And he's like, hey, you think you could go out there and get that whenever you get set up? And I was like, sure.
Now, who's this?
This is the park ranger.
Oh, it's the ranger. Okay,
yeah.
sorry.
I was like, sure, no problem. So I get all my GoPros set up. I had one that's like stuck. If you ever use a GoPro, it's got like the little pull tab things you stick on the thing.
Yeah,
it's great.
A million mounts.
Yeah, so I put one of those on Allie's and put one on mine. Everything's good. And then I got this brand new GoPro 10. Put it on a suction cup right beside me so that I could get some really good footage. Off I go. I turn around, come back, go hand the little kid, their little float. Oh, you saved the day. It's great. Where's my GoPro? It's in the lake.
Just completely slipped right offside, gone.
Completely gone. Completely gone.
Well, that'll happen.
Yeah. That sucked. Like really bad. I'm still pissed about it.
Well, right now everything's so hard to get. Just in general. Try to order any cameras. I mean, it's a nightmare and a half.
And what's funny is I've got 2 GoPro 4s. They're at GoPro 10 now. I mean, these things, and I mean, literally, I've had them in fireworks shows. I mean, I've blown them up. They're virtually indestructible. And I lose I mean, I didn't even get a single piece of footage off this brand new.
Oh, no, you did.
Oh, I did.
You're not able to retrieve it.
I just can't retrieve it.
Yeah, it's down there. Now, is that one of the ones, does that have to be tethered to a line, or can it Bluetooth it back?
It's all Bluetooth
So
now.
maybe if you went out in the middle with a kayak with your phone, you could pick up the signal from under the water.
Yeah, I
You
could.
could get the last video of it falling in.
Yeah. I'm not doing that, though.
There's that.
That's heartburn. That's just pain in the butt.
Well, you ever watch the videos of the guys that go like scuba diving in public places?
Oh, yeah.
And they'll get like
They
a million
come up with all
iPhones
kinds
and a
of crap.
million
Oh, yeah.
GoPros.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I need to go talk to them. You know?
Well, the GoPro's really neat. You think about all the cool footage that comes up, but think about how much just boring footage of nothing is on this thing. It's not nonstop for people to film with like the most mundane tasks.
Yeah, I bet you if you you think about it, if it was like in where's the big river that you go down to over in West Virginia, the one you muskie fish in. What's the one that you go muskie fishing in?
What's the one with the dam? Is that the Upper Potomac? That's the Upper Potomac.
All right, so that's about the closest you're going to get to a muskie. Hopefully they can pull up somebody's GoPro and you can see it swim by.
Oh, see, swim by and not catch them. I was really confused there for a minute. Well, I really get confused. So it's funny because anytime somebody asks me about like West Virginia rivers, I'm always used to this. There's like two rivers.
Right.
There's like the Patuxent and the Potomac.
Right.
And I'm like, that's it. That's all we got. And then from where I lived, because I lived in Maryland, Southern Maryland.
Right.
And then when I come up here and I'm like, we just drive and there's a river. I'm like, what river is this? This is the Potomac. I'm like, oh. And then I drive, like, oh, this is Potomac. No, it's the Shenandoah. What is this? This is Puerto Rocks. Well, what river is this? Well, that's Potomac. Well, this river Potomac means this. And I just don't. It's like it all snakes around, and I'm used to it just going like one direction.
Oh,
where they come to a V.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm not used to like making turns and winding up in the same area. So it's kind of weird to me to try
Completely
to
get you. And what's really the river that gets me the worst by far is the Shenandoah because it runs backwards. It's backwards than any other river ever, and I'm like, this isn't supposed to run this way. It doesn't, it's supposed to run.
Well, what meets in Harper's Ferry? That's
the Potomac and the Shenandoah.
Is that?
Yeah.
That's
So-
where the railroad tracks.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Right there.
I trained around.
Yeah. Good fishing though. Really, really good.
Never
fishing
fished there.
Oh, it's good.
Walked around in the water when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Saw a bunch of yellow perch swimming around, but I never actually got to fish it.
Yeah.
They said it's a big Haudermite. It's like a little insect. Looks like a
Yep.
little thing they poke it through the bottom. That's what they catch all their fish with.
Yeah.
Haggard mites. It's supposed to do that forever. It's my dad said back when he was a kid.
Oh yeah.
Like back in the, I guess like the 60s, 70s, they would go out there and do that. And there's the guys today that I talked to, that's the same thing.
Oh
they
yeah.
still do,
I watched
so.
a guy pull a muskie in there off the
didn't-
shore. Had
out of
no
there?
idea what he caught.
I didn't even know they were
No
there.
clue. No clue he had a muskie. He was getting ready to reach down there and grab it. I was like, that'll be a mistake.
That's a self-correcting problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You only do that once. Well, I was like, I saw the video of the guy that stuck his, I don't know what they were thinking. He was offshore. They caught a barracuda. And he goes and he lips it. And I mean, it just slices. his whole
Yeah,
thing.
it's
and it wasn't a
razor
big
blades right
one.
there.
So it was little itty bitty line. He was only like this big.
razor blades right there.
But just,
my
I mean,
friend.
just
You're
literally
toast.
just slid it open.
Yeah. This is awful.
So you were talking about kayaking.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of times what happens is, especially now with the way the weather is you get a lot of people that are kayaking, especially a lot with the COVID stuff. People something they could do. They were away from everybody.
For sure.
With all those sort of things. So I know that we get a lot of questions about kayaking.
Yep.
I wouldn't consider myself a kayak expert by any means. I have been on a kayak before. I've done some kayak fishing.
Sure.
So different types. I do understand, like, there's different types of kayaks and stuff like that.
There are.
But I think that there's a lot of questions that people have and they come up with. So I was thinking that, being that you were out there recently, maybe that's something you could discuss a little bit.
I can. I'd like to. That's a good one. So I kind of give you a little heads up on how we got into kayaking. This was like everybody kind of picked up something with COVID, right? That was their thing. You're like, all right, how are we going to do this? And what are me and my wife going to do to get the absolute out of this house, right? So we went kayak fishing, and we started off. We bought some. I did this insane amount of research on different kayaks, and what I found out was there is a ton of information out there on kayaks that don't necessarily provide a million different things. That don't really give you everything that you need. So I really, I stuck directly with fishing, right? And, when we went in there, there was, four main types. You got like the sit on top and you got the sit in and you got like the pedal and then they've even got inflatables that are getting really, really good. So, every one of them's kind of got their own pro and their own con. And, as we kind of go through that, when you look at it, it's like, all right, hey, look, what are you trying to do with it? Right. What's the overall goal? Obviously inflatable kayaks are not necessarily the one that you really want to go fishing with. We got these sharp things called hooks that like to, catch fish. So it's not necessarily the greatest idea, but for me, I looked at it from a different thing. I like fishing in rivers. I like fishing in lakes. Hell, I like fishing in cow ponds if I can. I mean, I'm just going to fish no matter what. So that kind of limited some of the choices that I really wanted to look at. And being able to move them, put them on my truck, being able to do all that stuff was another one. I think that's where like inflatables kind of shine a little bit. And they have the ability to really go, hey, look, if you don't have a truck or you don't have the ability to put a rack on your car or something like that, the inflatables, legit, you can just, blow it up, get to wherever you're going, throw it in your trunk, pull it out of your trunk, blow it up, and off you go. Have a good time, right?
Now, those inflatables you're talking about, are they 100% inflatable or are they like rigid like a Zodiac? Do you know how there's like
no, they're 100%
Zodiac boats where
these are 100% inflatable.
See, I've never dealt with any inflatable other than like a joke thing that you find like a inflatable. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. But as far as something that was actually made.
Absolutely. No. And that's just it. They, the inflatables are, and they've come a long way. Like back when I was growing up, you had these little things, you're like, oh crap, this sucks. Right. Now, no, I mean, it takes less than 5 minutes to blow these things up, and they're super sturdy. Most times they're more sturdy than an actual rigid, kayak. So really, really cool, really, really impressive. The technology continues to increase. But one of the big downsides of them is it's cool that you can throw them in your trunk, and go home, but you got to remember to take them out of your trunk and then, inflate it so it can dry out. That's like the biggest downfall in these things with inflatables. They mold, and you don't want that. So that kind of drew me away from inflatable kayaks. Now, I'm not saying that they're not great. I'm not saying they're not, I'm no expert by any stretch of the imagination. This was just my opinion on these things. So, so then, we kind of decided, my wife and I were going out and we went down the Shenandoah River, right? We're going to go kayak down there. And we got to try a whole bunch of different kayaks. We went down 3-4 times and, I had no idea, not growing up in this area, I didn't realize that Shenandoah is like the number one smallmouth of all time. You can just destroy them there. It is so amazing. However, some of the things you got to keep in mind is if there's places in there that you're going to rub bottom, and if you've got an expensive kayak, you really want to think about it, but maybe rent somebody else's and beat theirs up, but we got to find what really tracks well, and tracking means how you're going to, how it's going to go down, straight when you're paddling or whatever. How stable it is, for my wife is pretty impressive. It's pretty important to be, really stable because you don't want to be sitting in a kayak and trying to cast a rod and reel out. I went so far as to try to see, they say you can stand up in them. I did it. It's not, I wouldn't fish standing up. I don't need to.
Well, I see some of those are rated for like 800,000 pounds.
Oh, yeah.
And then they have like, outriggers.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen some of the back actually opens up into like a 3-point. It has like a stand.
Absolutely.
That you can stand
I think
on.
Native or Bonafide, one of those got one of those like
some
that.
pretty crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Don't get me wrong. We were up north. We're in New Jersey. There was a really neat outdoor store. I can't remember the name of it. I wish I could talk about it. But they had some kayaks there, and they had some of those ones that were like in the $15,000 range.
You can buy a freaking boat for what those things are
all
worth.
Kinds of stuff.
Oh yeah, it's
crazy. Somebody had posted online. They were at a boat show. $26,000 was one was set up, and I was like $26,000.
You know what I could do with $26,000 on a boat? That's a Ranger right there, dude.
Well, it was neat because it basically is just a small boat. It had the electric engines. It was all GPS powered. So you're sitting there, but touch of a finger drive around and do that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of, have you ever used anything other than paddles?
So we did do the foot pedals.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not a fan. I know a lot of people who are in the river. Not worth it. Not worth it at all.
So I see there's two different types of that. So I've seen where I'm sure there's more than two, but I have seen two different types.
Yep.
I've seen where it looks like two paddles, like duck's feet.
Yeah.
They're going back and forth. That's how it goes. And then I've seen ones where it actually spins a propeller.
Absolutely.
Which is pretty neat in its own.
Of course. Of course.
Yet again, like I said, in the river where you're going and cascading through the shallow areas, and you're also fighting that draw up, I feel like the second you hit bottom of that, I don't know how great that would be.
Let's think about this. So say you get into really shallow, and the paddles, like let's use that for example. The paddles drop down, and you push back and forth, and they push you down, the lake, pond, river, whatever you're in, right? Now you get into a shallow area, and those pull up underneath it. How you moving? If you didn't bring a paddle with you, and you're on a river, and you're in a shallow area, and those things draw up underneath you, you legit are up the creek without a paddle. I mean, legitimately up the creek without a paddle. That's terrible. But a lot of people like it. So, that's kind of where we're at. And that's, it's impressive, but there were a couple other things that, we kind of hit on that were really, really cool. One of them that we kind of hit on was, like the inside, sit inside, things like that. It was really cool. But a couple of things, and my wife actually kind of brought this one up when we were kind of judging what we were going to do. It's nice that you have it around there, and if you're fishing later seasons, you can kind of put a skirt around it and keep some water out and stuff like that. So it might extend your fishing season a little bit. But if water gets in, you're sitting in that all day long. Wet butt all day, not a good plan.
So I've only been in one sit-in kayak.
Right.
And I was probably like 17, 18. It was okay. It was something.
It was cool. Everybody started that.
Wasn't doing anything. No. Wasn't fishing. Wasn't doing, just paddling around at night, actually.
Right.
And it was okay. Everything else has always been on a sit on top.
Right.
And I will say that I feel safer on a sit on top than I do a sit in. I feel like get in and out of it better.
Yeah.
I can hang my feet to the side when I get some water. I can do things like that. I can store things. And people go, oh, well, you would think you could store a lot of stuff in a sit-in kayak.
Not so much.
But you can't really reach. It'd be like reaching onto the table to try to get, and you can't really get anything.
Right. And that sucks.
And I feel like you're really, really, really limited in that whole angle. And I also feel like they're much narrower.
Yeah.
Now, I think if you were going to go somewhere where you thought you were going to get water over the top,
right,
and you had sealed yourself in and did those kind of things, like, of course, this makes me sound ignorant, but like Eskimos, like you see, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of what I figure would be, more the use for that. I'm imagining as you're paddling around polar bears and icebergs.
Right.
But
polar bears and icebergs. I'm not paddling around polar bears or icebergs.
For the ice, that's something you got to do sometimes. It's really interesting.
But big waves, like big rapids, is where people kind of look at that.
So I've seen those littler ones where it's the same kind of thing. But it's small,
those are river kayaks,
and they just kind of flop around and hurt themselves. It's interesting, but it's that's not my cup of tea.
I mean, even if you're fishing a river that might have some type of any type of rapid that's going to come over, that's the downside of those sit-ins is you can swamp them, and then you've got to figure out how to get it out of the water, dump it out, and whereas sit on tops, which is like what I have and what you were talking about, they have scuppers, so water comes on board, it's going through.
Well, right? And that too, and like I've never seen a sit-in that had like rod holders.
Yeah, no. Well, they have them. They have them now. Yeah.
I mean, that's like the whole sit on tops are kind of like sit up, and that's where the whole like sea kayak kind of thing is what they were for versus not kayaks.
Yeah,
I think that's probably the biggest question.
Yeah,
and people have is what should I get? And I would say 90% of the time I would probably lean more towards
absolutely
sit on top.
Yeah, they're very stable.
Then I
they're
would
very capable.
Side.
Yeah, and I mean, unless you're that diehard fisherman, you're not going to be fishing October, November time frame. That or you're just going to wear dry suit if you really want to. I mean, there's other ways to kind of combat that. But I mean, ultimately, I'm a fan of sit on top. I bought me and my wife bought two of them. They're Jackson Coosa HDs. I absolutely love them. They're a little bit heavy. They're a lot pricey. You could when COVID was coming around, we just fell into a really, really good deal. And decided, hey, look, this is what we're going to go for. And it has rod holders. It has, this thing is so tricked out. It has a place to put like fishing line, and you can string rods and like legitimately string rods. It's got places to where you can put the tips of your rod into the front. So, if you're going under brush or you're just storing your rods or whatever, it gets in there and you're going to have these things and it protects the tips and, you know, you don't have to worry about breaking
Like
stuff.
a little mini bass boat.
Oh yeah. And then you've got, you know, the section right behind you that you can put all your, you know, your little basket and all those things. And that's a whole
Well, you'll
thing
see the guys
also.
have the whole little rechargeable batteries and they'll have fish finders.
I'm not that cool.
And all that kind of crazy stuff
I'm
like
not
that.
that cool.
It's neat. I mean, if that was my thing.
Oh yeah.
Like I could see how quickly.
Oh, insane.
How quickly you
Insane.
can spend the money.
Yeah. And
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I talked to a guy that was actually in your shop yesterday and that's his thing.
So you were talking to John. He actually has a kayak fishing club.
Oh, okay.
In the area. It's called Nova Bass Assassins.
I got you.
It's not only a Northern Virginia thing though, but that is what they call it.
Right.
So they're out of here locally. Pretty good little group.
Yeah.
We do some stuff with them here and there. We're actually probably going to get them on here one of these days to talk. A couple guys.
I'd like that a lot.
Get a little bit better idea of what's going on locally, where you can kayak fish around here,
Right.
Where the better places are. They do a lot out of Sleeter Lake,
Yeah.
you know, up here in
Oh,
Purcellville.
absolutely.
That's a big place everybody goes now. So, and they've got some crazy tricked out kayaks over there. And then there's another group in the area that does a bunch. That's like KVD kayak something.
Everybody looks at Anna right now.
Yeah, I'm
because,
hoping for Anna to
she's
give me
supposed
the
to know
name,
all
but
the answers.
They do tournaments like in Lake Ann and all that kind of stuff. So there's a huge kayak following now, where there didn't used to be. I don't want to say 10, maybe even longer than that, maybe like 15 years ago. It was very, you know, you didn't see a lot of guys out there doing it.
Dude, I love it. I mean, and I love it, but my wife is like all in. It's like, I mean, she's drooling at the mouth. It's time to take kayaks out. It's time to go. It's time to get, baby. It's like 47 degrees outside. I'm not going to take kayaks out.
It's also a really good way to get sun poisoning.
Yeah.
I got burned so bad.
I
when
know
they
you
out
were
there.
telling me
They were
about
out there
this. This is horrible.
Fishing Kids Peak over the Eastern Shore,
Right.
right on the other side of the Bay Bridge Tunnel. There's a cove over there. It's a park, and they got concrete chips that they've sunk to protect it.
Yeah.
And you fish around those. They're really cool way they have it. A lot of fluke and stuff over there. But when we were there, I'm just paddling away, fishing, not paying attention to anything.
Before you know it.
And the next day, I felt it was warm out, and I'm sitting in the car with the heat on.
Oh yeah.
Because I didn't realize I was, like sun poisoning. I didn't realize
Life is bad.
That was terrible.
Yeah.
So
that life is really, really bad at that point. And you know, it's funny because people don't realize that. You're right. You know, it's a downside of kayak fishing.
But really, you can do it on boat.
Pay attention, right? You know, you could do it anywhere, but you know, pay attention. I mean, I know we went out to Beaver Dam and we were fishing out there, and overcast day. You know, everybody tells you can get more. You know, you get a bigger sunburn on overcast days. It was like, I don't know, freezing cold. The rain came in, and then all of a sudden the sun came out. And it's like 90-something degrees, and I'm like, okay, this is cool. And maybe we stayed out for maybe 3 hours. That was it. We got in, put the kayaks up, got home, went to go fix dinner or something like that, and I was burnt. I mean, and I wear like long sleeves, the whole 9 yards, right? And I was roasted. My ears were burnt. The tops of my ears were burnt. If you've never had the tops,
by the
of
way,
your ears
that's
burnt,
the worst because it
sucks.
gets that like leathery.
Yes, it is the
hard
worst.
feel to it. So it's not very comfortable.
It is the worst. It is the worst. So,
no, it's really funny how quick you get messed up in it. And years ago, I had a class and we were shooting long distance,
right?
And it's in April. And in April around here, it can be anything. It
Oh
can be,
God, yeah. Wait a minute.
It can be 90 degrees.
Yep.
It can be negative 10 degrees. You
Right,
never know.
snowing.
So, it's funny you say that. I wake up in the morning and it's snowing, and there's snow on the ground. There's like an inch of snow on the ground.
Oh,
and
boy.
I'm like, let's cancel this class. Like, I'm done. We're going to cancel because we had the day before I was already beat.
Sure.
And of course, no, they don't cancel the class. And it's on the ground too. It's long distance for precision shooting.
Right.
So you're going to be in this wet grass all day. So we go out there in the morning and we start shooting, and it's so cold, and I'm shivering, and I'm freezing, and it's terrible. The wind's ripping. And then at the end of the day, I'm taking off my coat and everything. It's like 80 degrees. The sun's on us. Everything's gone. It's humidity now.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And the funniest thing about it was I was so windburned and sunburned.
Yep.
My whole face was like bright red. It was like one of the worst I ever had. And yet again, it wasn't like it was a 90-degree day. It was just between the windburn and the sunburn. It was terrible.
Yeah. And, it's funny. I hunt out in Kansas and Missouri a lot, and there is something about the windburn. I would take a sunburn over windburn, especially like cold windburn. Your nose gets, just ripped up. Your lips are dry, but there's just something about it that is so that's a pain level that you just don't understand.
When you're shooting long distance, even if you're hunting or you're practicing or whatever you're doing, you tend to be sitting in a plane, a wide area, and the wind just starts kicking.
You can't get out of it.
And you're laying there and you're so hyper focused on what you're doing that you don't even realize it till afterwards.
Yeah.
And when I would always realize was when I got home, because I take a shower when I get back.
Right.
And the second that water hit my face.
Oh yeah.
Or the top of my head where all my hair fell out. Oh my God, it would hurt so bad.
It's the worst thing ever. Yeah, that's people laugh about it. I have all kinds of I don't know. I wear hats off, quite a bit. So we get all of that going, and I love wearing hats to begin with, but I've realized it's a much bigger need now that you don't have any hair on top of your head. So other than that though, it's pretty slick. But before we kind of close this one out, I did want to kind of let folks know, there's a lot of different types of kayaks out there. If you're interested in it, obviously, shoot me some, you're welcome to, send us some info, ask all the questions that you like. info@thehuntingquest.com. We've got, but, kind of stick with some of the big brands. You've got Old Town, Jackson, Bonafide, Ascent, Wilderness, Native, Perception. There's a ton of different ones out there, and you can find a ton of different stuff out there. But in the end, you just kind of want to make sure it fits what you're trying to do. And if if you're kind of looking at it and you want to, look at how you want to actually fish, look at how you want to hunt, look, and you can hunt from these kayaks as well. So give it a shot, take a look at it and see what you can do. Other than that, the old adage is get out there and try it. There's a lot of folks that have, paddle days, go beat up somebody, some of these river outfitters guides and stuff like that. Let them, there's a ton of them out there. They'll rent you these high-end kayaks, beat them up, see if you like them, see if they track well. You may hate it. I mean, I love a Coosa HD. It's a heavy boat. It's really stable. It's not for everybody. So go paddle one. Go find out what you like. So,
well, I think it's a key thing too is if you ask people, if you ask people that fish or say, hey, what kind of kayak do you like? You're gonna get a lot of bias.
Ford and Chevy right there.
You see a lot of that, I like Hobie, I like Wilderness Systems, I like
absolutely.
This, that, the other. It's something you need to figure out, and you might not need to go spend $5,000 on your first kayak.
Agreed.
You're going to buy something from, as much as I hate to say it, because you want to shop at small businesses first, because it's always better for.
There you go.
But the cheap stuff that takes has, Walmart has something to get into to start with. But that's about that for kayaks. What we'll probably do too is especially if we have any more questions, people get more into it, we will get some of the more kayak
absolutely
experts out here. We get them talking.
Absolutely.
About
we'll get everybody in there. So, I know that you kind of, we kind of covered my kayak stuff. I appreciate it. But you were talking to me about fishing lures.
Yeah. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to talk about a lure today. And if this works out well, people like it, we will talk about a couple different lures. We'll talk about a different lure every week or every other week or something like that. Today, what I brought out was some Raffles. And so, we'll start off with that.
Here we go.
We'll start out with the Rapala, however you want to say it. So I like to say Rapala. I think that sounds better.
I like Rapala too.
Unfortunately, that's not the name. It is Rapala. If you call their 1-800 phone line, it's going to say Rapala on there. I think Rapala sounds better. I think all the other weird names that people come up with is weird too. Maybe one day we'll have a discussion about Geisley is another one that make triggers. People call them Giselles and all these different crazy names. But so first so when I call them Rapalas, I'm doing it the correct way. People give me a bunch of crap about it. I don't know, whatever. But what we have here today, and we should have it up on your screen if you want to see it, is these aren't necessarily new. They're not old. They came out last year. They are the
hell of a time to come out with a new lure in the middle of COVID, right?
Well, they got kind of come out a new lure every year. I mean,
I know what you mean.
We'll also could discuss too how much of the lure is selling the design to the fisherman, not so much to catch the fish.
I'm just as guilty.
These are a good example of something that I don't think is a gimmick lure.
Right.
I think that there is, of course, some salesmaness to it. Obviously, the packaging is for you, not for the fish.
Right.
So do incorporate that some of this is to be an idea to be sold to the market. But I found that out of some of the newer stuff that came out, these are actually useful and have some neat design
Right.
twists that we don't normally see in a lot of stuff. Depending on where you're from, how you fish. Up north, they do a lot of vertical jigging. We don't tend to do as much vertical jigging here in the freshwater
Gotcha.
world. We don't really ice fish this far down much.
Right.
You know, once you're starting to get to New Jersey, Pennsylvania, they do. And that's where you'll see a lot of vertical jigging and stuff like that.
Sure.
But pretty much anything Maryland and South, you're not going to see a whole lot of it. So you get to like saltwater heavy, heavy metal jigging. And then you're going to know, lipless crankbaits, being a crankbait without a lip, is the other part that this has to it. And you would use that pretty much, all over any kind of freshwater area they would use them. So these are what I would call a combination of them. The way that they're marketing it is a multi-species lure.
Okay.
I would consider any fishing lure a multi-species lure. It sounds pretty good, but I mean, I don't think that there's certain fish that go, oh, that wasn't made for me, I'm not taking it. Obviously, there's some that would entice different fish by sizes, but they play really big into this idea that this is the one lure that would be
Bass are cichlids, man. They're just mean fish. They want to kill and eat everything, so it's all good.
So, and that's true too, depending on what you're going after. I mean, some stuff just...
Right.
We've talked before about rattling noises. Before.
Oh, yeah.
Different
Absolutely.
theories on that. Are the bass actually hitting that because it's enticing, they want to eat it, or is it just annoying them and they're just an animal that eats things when they get annoyed?
You just piss them off. They're having a bad day.
But what we'll do is we'll talk about these really quick. I have 14 of them out. I believe this represents every color that they make. There might be a couple new colors out, but this should run just about the whole spectrum.
And those are all straight off your shelf, right?
Yeah, these are off the shelf. If we do have, so at the end of this, if you find these really interesting, we do sell them at the store. Davis Guns and Gear here in Percival, so you're more than welcome to come pick some up. We have a large selection of Rapalas and Rapalas. We have large selection of them, so if this is something that interests you, come on by and check them out. But we'll talk about what makes these things neat. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull one out of the package first. Take a look at it here. And
now, these guys, what are they made out of? Are they metal, they wood? What are
so they? We do think of this brand normally being a balsa wood, coated in like a lacquer kind of finish or whatever it is.
Right. So they stuck traditional?
No, these are plastic.
Oh, okay.
So what they did here was, I don't know if you ever seen or remember, they used to make what they would call bladed, jigs, and there was a metal blade in it. You can actually see this has a metal blade in it. And then around the metal blade there would be lead.
Kind of old school, yeah.
And then they would vertical jig them.
Gotcha.
But what they did here was it's a similar design. And by the way, I'm trying to hold this the best, and I can't really see what it looks like. So if it's kind of like off there somewhere, you know what I mean?
What, if you set it down on top of all the other ones?
Well, I don't know where my mark is. Is that about center? Okay, so that's about center.
See, Anna to the rescue.
Yeah, that's pretty much. It's going to be like that today. So that's about center? Yeah, okay. So like I said, it's going to be the metal blade there, and then it's going to have plastic around it. But what makes these really interesting is if you look here, there's two different holes.
Gotcha.
Okay. So the back hole is for, the front hole, sorry. The back hole is if you want to crank this and use this like a lipless crankbait.
Okay.
So it's going to go forward. It's going to shoot it back and forth as you fish it.
Sure.
If you switch it over to the front hole, it's more set up for vertical jigging. So it's going to give you that up and that down motion.
Okay.
So you could run this next to a pier in a deep spot and just up and down, up and down, up and down.
Right.
Or run it crankless. Or run it lipless, like a lipless crankbait.
Sure.
It depends on where you hold it. It also has a rattle in it.
Gotcha.
And this being metal, it has a shine to it. So as it goes
loud
through,
rattle too.
Yeah, it's pretty substantial.
Yeah.
And I mean without the hooks too, because sometimes that's kind of deceptive.
Yeah, but either way, I mean,
yeah, it's still pretty loud. It gives you the shine.
Yeah.
Off the metal. So you're getting like 3 or 4 different things I'll have at the same time. So you're getting a rattle, you're getting a nice swim through it, and you're getting a flash off of it. So you're kind of getting like what a spinner would do.
Hits the trifecta.
Kind of hits everything. If you have a fish that's really driven for looking for flash, you're going to get it.
Right.
If you have a fish that's driven off that movement, you're going to get it. You know, it all depends. Also, the way they rig the front hooks, it's just a 2 style, so it's less likely to actually foul up, and it folds up nicely. Yeah, and you could actually pop that off too if you just wanted to run the back one. Especially sometimes if you're vertical jigging like we were talking about, it keeps it a little bit easier to do. And of course they did that big, that big aggressive eye.
I love the eyes. That's my thing.
More for a look. But if you look at the styles of them all here, the colors are different.
Yeah.
But they are very, very similar.
Yeah.
To
It's
the
a cool paint. They put some time in that paint.
They didn't do like gimmicky colors.
Right. Yeah.
So like when you look at it, like the idea here is they're all metallic.
Right.
And they're metallic, so you're going to have that flash to it.
Right.
They're all going to be that metal design. They're all the same.
Sure.
So this blue here, it'll be a silver flash with a bit of a blue to it.
Right.
You know, this copper color is going to be a copper flash to it.
Right.
And think of that more like when we run spinners or bass spinners or inline spinners.
Absolutely.
When you run a silver one, you're going to get a silver color to
Sure.
it. You run a copper one, you're going to get that copper color to it. It might look more like you know, a carp or something like that.
Sure.
Whereas the silver one's going to look more like a shiner or feeder.
Gotcha.
You know, and that blue hint might give you something different. You know, bluegill has that blue color to it.
Of course, yeah.
So you're looking at the shine that color is going to get. And a lot of times what you want to do is, and we always talk about, you know, mimicking what they're feeding on, mimicking the catch.
Of course.
So if you go out there and you see a bunch of bluegill, then you might want to take something that has more of a blue shine to it, you know, for that hint of color there.
Gotcha.
Or maybe even that green color that has to it. Now, I know that seems like more of like a tigery green, but that, you know, that would help out as well. So, but if you go somewhere where there's a lot of, you know, people have been putting goldfish in there, or there's a lot of small carp or something like that, that golden color might do better for you.
Absolutely.
So, and I just think that actually just looks.
I like that.
It looks cool too. So and that's also just part of the gimmicky part of it too. But yeah, you could run these things, you know, vertical jig them, run them by crankbait. They work really well.
Fast, slow. What do you like?
You do. That's kind of what's neat about it. It's kind of versatile, and that's why I picked these.
Right.
There were a lot of things to talk about first, you know, and I wanted something where we had a good example of colors.
Gotcha.
Something that was different too. I mean, we could have sat here and talked about the same, you know, big build crankbait all day long.
Of course,
I've seen those a million times. The color's different, but what's really that different? I wanted to pick up something that was a little different, and what's neat about it is it gives you some techniques that you may not have used before.
Sure, absolutely.
If you haven't vertical jig before, this could be something you could pick up a vertical jig.
Right.
And then if the vertical jig isn't for you, you can run it just straight back and forth.
Right.
But you have more likely to be successful having those, you know, extra things too.
I got you. Yeah, it's a definitely versatile.
And it's also not a huge lure.
Yeah.
It's not overly, you know, large.
What do you say that is? Like
it's 2.5 inches.
2.5 inches. Yeah.
So it's a half ounce.
Yeah. There
So
you go.
you know, most of your rods and reels can be fine carrying it.
absolutely.
You know, you can run it out there and not have to worry about it. And then it's a good size fishing wise.
Yeah.
You know, I do see a lot of movement towards people using really, really big swim baits and stuff like that for bass around here.
I get it. I mean,
Which is great. You know,
I'm
if
still
it
old
works,
school on that one.
Well, I understand the concept. The idea is that the bigger the bait, the bigger the
Bigger
fish.
fish, yeah.
And I've always been, I don't know necessarily say a firm believer of that, but I always understood that concept that
I get it.
You know,
there's something to it. I mean, honestly, you're not going to have, you know, a 1 pound bass going after a 9-inch freaking worm or something like that. I mean, you might, but you set it up the right way, you'll avoid those, right?
Well, it's like we talked before, and we'll have a discussion about this too, because I think this is something that comes with a lot, is with bass spinners and inline spinners and things of those nature. For me, I always tend to catch much larger fish on bass spinners than I would on the other things I was using.
Sure.
And I would always attribute that to it's such a big lure, not necessarily weight-wise or use-wise, but it takes up so much area when it's going through the water that fish that hits it,
he's not going to be intimidated over anything.
He's large, and he's going to hit it, and he's going to hit it immediately because there's so much going on.
Oh, yeah.
So you're not going to get a timid hit, but they're not going to work well, you know, before the spawn. They're not going to work well in the winter. They're not going to work well then. You need that reaction hit on those.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of where that comes to play, you know, and that's the whole nother concept to talk about. But
of course.
I did think that these were just a really neat lure to put out there. And of course, you're going to look at these two similar to, you know, like a rattle trap. You probably fish the same way you fish a rattle trap.
Yeah. I'm a fast fisher with rattle traps. I don't know why. I just always have been.
They tend to have a lot of side-to-side action. So they tend to, you know, the faster you retrieve, the better the action is on them. So I think this is what I would kind of consider their kind of version of it.
I get it.
They do have the X wrap, which is another similar one.
I've got a couple of those.
You know, it's a little bit wider. It has more of a bill, whereas this doesn't have as wide a profile from front.
How fast do you suppose that's going to drop?
Oh, fast. It's heavy.
Really, really fast.
It's heavy and it's dense.
Yeah.
So it's going to drop really quick. And that's why you can vertical jig.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you just tap it up and down, tap it up and down.
You don't have to worry about it floating off left or right.
No. And it's not
just going to kind of do its thing, right?
It's not so small that you're going to target too small fish. And then also if you do catch something big, that it's just going to gulp it.
I got you.
Whereas it's a decent size to go with. But this, as far as I know right now, this is the only size they make them in.
Okay.
So they might make something larger later on. But, you know, that's my take on that. So.
Well, so... Not, you know, so a couple of questions that we get, at least I get, right? What does color mean when it comes to stained water or muddy water or clear water? You know, you talk about that. Like muskie's kind of not the right fish to talk about because they're skittish fish to begin with. But bass, especially, you can fish in. I mean, I fished in ponds that were orange and you couldn't see anything. And how does color play into that in your mind? What do you think?
So I think we overthink that.
Okay.
I think that gets way overthought.
Okay.
And the reason that I say that, we're going to go back to like some really old school stuff. Now, if you're not from around here or from the East Coast, and especially like on the saltwater side, if you never went out,
right,
and ever like plugged for striped bass on the jetties,
yeah,
then you're not going to understand what I'm talking about. So it's a little bit to explain. So when you go out plugging for striped bass, you use large plugs.
Sure.
Okay. And during the day, you use different colors, things like that.
Sure.
Red and white. You see these really traditional colors, like
you
see
of course.
The spoons. And they're usually just traditional long wooden plugs.
Gotcha.
Three treble hooks in them, something like that.
Sure.
And you're going to crank them. They usually work on the surface of the water, pull them back and forth. Very traditional fishing lures.
Gotcha.
Very, very
plugs
simple.
Plugs have been around forever.
Atomic makes them. There's just nothing to them. They're just very simple.
Love them.
At night, you use black.
All right.
And people always say to me, "Why would you use black at night? You want it to be more visible." Well, here's the thing: unless you shine the light on it, it's not going to be more visible.
Right.
So unless you can shine light onto the color, they're not going to see the color.
Right.
So a lot of times, if you think of them, especially on the top, they're hunting from the bottom, looking up at what's on the surface. So the reason that we use black is because you want that more defined outline.
Sure.
So the darker it is, the better they can actually see it.
Gotcha.
So a lot of times,
you're casting the silhouette. Right?
Yes,
yeah.
and I think that's a lot of what we're doing when we get into these really dirty water. For years, I always thought, you ever see like brown churning water? Like you ever been in like a creek or a spillway and the water's just roaring and stuff's going?
Sure.
And you'd go, there's never a fish in there. I can't tell you how many times I threw basic stuff in there.
Oh yeah.
And pulled fish out of there like crazy.
Absolutely.
And the part of the reason was because, especially in streams, and especially like if there was a dam,
right,
blocking up a stream,
sure,
or a river, okay, but more like a stream, something smaller. You get these deep pockets and turns, and the fish will sit in those pockets.
Sure.
The larger aggressive bass will come swim up from the pond, and they'll get into these pockets.
Sure.
And then when the water goes down, they're stuck in these
stuck
pockets.
in there, yeah.
And they live in these pockets, and you can walk around and catch them. It only works for places that have dams in it, really.
Sure.
But then when the water starts roaring, what do they want to do? They want to find a new place. They want to be the new, larger place. Yeah. And they'll come
Different
out.
food source, right?
And when they're coming out, everything is falling in this muddy water, hitting it. How they see in the muddy water, how they do it, I have no idea.
But they do.
I will throw stuff into this muddy water, and I will catch the fish.
Yeah.
So I don't. So
I throw brown in brown water, and people look at there and they're like, "What?" I'm like, brown in brown water, and it, if you can get reddish brown, you can get that aspect in brown water. It has never ever failed me. Brown on brown water with but you're looking at again that dark reddish. Almost earthworm, type brown.
Here's a question, and this is what you got to think to yourself, okay? Chartreuse.
Yeah.
Saltwater fishing.
Oh, yeah.
Chartreuse jigs, chartreuse everything.
Oh, yeah.
Throw it out. Chartreuse.
Oh, yeah.
What in the water is chartreuse? What is out there that's bright yellow? I don't know what it is, but they bite it. I don't think it's so much you want to mimic something and you want to mimic a fish, but I don't know what they see versus what we see. Right. And you can have an idea and you can try to duplicate something, but at the end of the day, you don't know what they are.
Absolutely.
Like, for example, like people get crawfish lures and they're red. They're red crawfish lures. There's no red crawfish. Crawfish aren't red till you cook them.
Right.
Do you think the fish are out there catching crawfish and eating them? No, they're not catching them. But you know what? I was using a red chatterbait the other day and I was slamming them left and right.
Right.
So I don't necessarily know what the correlation is. And I think anybody that sits there and says, oh, well, if the water is this color, use this, because this is why.
Right.
You might have a theory behind it, but I don't know that anybody really knows what they're looking for. And if they're hungry, they're going to eat anything.
Yeah.
Why would a fish eat a piece of bread?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know, there's all those weird things to it. So I don't really know. I will tell you this. I use we're talking about spinners. If I use spinners, bass spinners, I tend to use a white or gray.
Yeah, I noticed it. We were talking about this the other day.
Willow blades.
Right.
Silver.
Right.
If I don't have silver, I'll use gold, but I use silver over gold.
But you're a willow blade guy, not a Colorado blade.
Nope, 100%. It's got to be willow blades. Prefer silver. And then I'll use white and I'll use for the spinner stuff like that.
Right.
Jigs, I'll use the ones that look like bluegill colors.
Oh, yeah.
Those have
Yeah.
that. They tend to work
Yeah,
really well,
yeah.
and I can understand why.
Sure.
Yet again, white,
Yep.
red.
Yep.
I was showing you where I was using a white chatterbait with a blue
that
tail.
thing is just destroyed.
Yeah, and the tail was blue, and it doesn't make any sense because what's swimming around that's that.
Right.
And unfortunately, I don't have it. I wish I had to show it right now.
Right.
The color blue is not a natural color.
Right, no.
It's like a bright iridescent blue. It looks like, it looks like a sea bass.
Right.
Well, you're not going to see that, in a pond around here, but yet they tend to hit it.
Of course.
So the question is, at the end of the day, are they hitting the color? Are they more interested in the vibration? Is the way it
Right.
swims?
There's something.
Are they hitting stuff because they're curious? They don't know what it is. So I don't really have an answer from color wise. I just know that there's colors that work for me in situations.
And there's colors that don't.
And if they work, I will try them first.
Right.
And they'll continue to go through and they'll work.
And then you find the ones that, if none of that works, you just, it's like, oh crap.
Explain to me
where am I now?
why a white and red spoon works.
For the life of me, never been able to figure that one out, but it works. It works religiously.
You hear all these stories about spectrum of what the fish can see and they can't see.
Yeah.
They can't see red line, or they think red's blood, or they
Yeah, no.
And you'll hear all these different things. At the end of the day, I don't even know what really is substantial from that or not, or what we've really had the biology figured out, or better yet, what's just a better marketing scheme.
Right.
If I was trying to sell you fishing line and we all made mono line and that's all we made, it was clear, and all of a sudden I dyed it red one day, I'd sell you all kinds of ideas.
Somebody dumped some red in the mono line.
Oh, it looks
this
like
is the greatest thing ever.
It looks like blue. It looks like it looks like blood. It looks like whatever you needed me to do. I'll make up stories all day long.
Oh yeah.
So that's what I wonder. How much of it is?
Oh yeah,
is
absolutely
really that kind of angle.
Well, I don't know. I from my fishing perspective, I go at it from this way. If I'm fishing for bass, they're a cichlid, right? They're in the cichlid family. They are some mean fish. Piss them off, and see just what they're going to do, right? And to me, that's my notion. Whether I've got to piss them off with a Colorado blade, or I've got to piss them off with a willow blade, or I got to put a white jig right in front of them, looking, that looks like a grub. Who knows? But piss them off. That's how I go about it, And
but that's a perfect example. What you just said, and I didn't even think about it until you just said it. There's white grubs.
Oh yeah.
I never thought about white grubs.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? That's a color.
Yeah.
That could be what they see. I don't know how often it is.
Yeah.
That a white grub actually falls in the water. Probably few and far between, but that is is a color.
That's I don't know. That's my take on the white grub thing. So, we're getting the.
So I think we're gonna have to wrap it up here. We're getting here to pushing our
we're getting the hook. So
before we get turned off, but as far as lure questions go or comments, I'd love to see if anybody else has any comments or ideas on that.
Yeah.
If they could shed any light or ideas on why they think colors are, or if there's some biology they could figure out that I'm not
no
aware
kidding.
of.
Absolutely.
And again, like I said, I'm no marine biologist, but this is all just what I've figured out over the years. Leave your comments below, stuff like that. If there's a lure that you want us to look at next week specifically, I probably have it over there in the store. We could put it out and talk about it.
Yeah.
Like I said, anything that you see on the show, we have at the store. So you're more than welcome to come by and buy it. After that, thanks for watching.
Yeah.
It's like we always say, we enjoy doing this. We're learning. We're figuring it out. So hopefully everybody else likes it and they watch it with us.
Absolutely.
So
take somebody out, go fishing.
Yeah, take kids out there. The youth is what's important.
Absolutely.
If anything else, if you don't get out there and teach the kids, no one's going to get out there and do it.
Absolutely.
So that's the.
And if you suck at it, great. Suck at it with your kid. That's how you learn.
You'll figure it out eventually.
Absolutely.
And if there's something we can help you with, tell us. More than welcome to help.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. Cool.
That's it.
All right, man. Well, I'll call this one a wrap.
All right.
Awesome. We'll talk to y'all later and enjoy it.